You'll hear this as well. People will make it out to us that value is objective. People will try to convince us that there are just things in the world that are objectively valuable. Where did people get that notion from? Value's objective? Of course it isn't. Value is subjective. It's not objective. What's valuable to you may not be valuable to me. Why is value subjective? So why is there not a universal, objective value? Why do all humans not just find everything equally valuable? Because we know this, folks. All humans don't find everything equally valuable. Some people value other things more than others. So why is there so much diversity in value if it's truly objective? Folks, value, what we define as valuable to us is circumstantial a lot of the time. A huge part of what we deem to be valuable depends on our circumstances. Let me give you some examples. And they're going to be basic examples. But it's just, I want to use a few basic examples just to get this point across. This point that value is very subjective and it is in no way objective. Let me give you a first example. Example number 1. I want you to imagine I have, 2 bunches of bananas. So I've got 2 bunches of bananas, and on each bunch there are 10 bananas. So in total, we have 20 bananas. Perfectly ripe, good bananas. Now I want you to imagine you're walking down the street, and I want you, in this example, I want you to imagine you've just finished eating a big greasy fuck knows what. Let's imagine you've went to the takeaway and you've had a big greasy fish and chip. You know, battered fish and chips fried in oil, or potatoes fried in oil that we call chips. I want you to imagine you've had a big greasy fish and chip out of the takeaway. So you've eaten all of this food. Super high calorie food. Super calorie dense. Everything has been fried in oil. It's battered fish and potatoes fried in oil. This is very high calorie food, folks. So naturally, when you have finished eating your entire fish, which let's say it's this big, it's a big old battered fish that you've eaten. So let's say you've eaten this big long battered fish and you've eaten your big portion of chips as well. And let's imagine after that meal, you are walking down the street. Your belly full of greasy, fatty calories, we could say. Okay, so you're walking down the street and you've got a bit of a stitch. Ooh, you know, you're starting to feel the pinch a bit. You know, you have a bit of a pooch, let's say, because you've eaten so much food. So as you're walking down the street and you see me, the Bandido, with his red bandana on the sidewalk, with his 20 bananas split up into 2 bunches of 10. Now let's imagine, as you are approaching me, I say, "Excuse me, sir, I'll sell you my 20 bananas for, $100. Let's imagine $100 for 20 bananas. Now, you, after your big greasy fish and chip, you'd probably look at me and say, 20 bananas? I don't want 20 bananas. Bananas? Why would I want bananas when I can have super high calorie food like fish and chips? I can go and buy a Mars bar or a Snickers bar. I can have ice cream. I could eat a whole bunch more tastier things than your fucking bananas. And besides, you've just finished consuming all of this super high calorie food. In other words, What am I saying? When you look at the proposition before you, the proposition being, would you like to buy my 20 bananas for 100 bucks? You, in that moment, in those specific circumstances, you don't value my 20 bananas very highly. And how do we know this? Well, we know this because you're not willing to part with the 100 necessary bucks to acquire my 20 bananas. So you're walking down the street full of food. You see me trying to sell you 20 bananas for 100 bucks. And you think, no fucking way. I can get a whole bunch of far more tastier food for a cheaper price than your bananas. So fine. What do? In that moment, you look at me, you look at the bananas, and you don't value. The bananas aren't valuable enough to you for you to actually part with the necessary money to purchase them. So you walk past me and say, fuck your bananas. Okay. Now I want you to imagine, let's fast forward 6 months. And let's say you decide to go out for a safari in Africa. So you're saying to yourself, I want a break. I want to get away. I want to go on a safari, to go and watch the giraffes and the elephants, the lions, the leopards, the baboons, and the hyenas, and the hippopotamus in the lake over there. I've always wanted to see a hippopotamus. So you take yourself off to Africa for a safari. Now I want you to imagine, in your little safari car, there's a big ugly crash. Your safari car veers off the side of the road. And all the people that you're traveling with, all the guides, they all die in the car crash, except you. So you miraculously survive. But all of the guides, all the people protecting you, die in the car crash. All right. So here you are, stranded out in some big fucking nature reserve, and you've no food. You see where I'm going with this? So you're stranded. And let's imagine 30 days pass since the safari car crashes. And you haven't eaten. Let's use our imagination for the sake of the example. Let's imagine since the safari car has crashed, you haven't eaten in 30 days. So let's imagine you've been fasting for 30 days. You haven't managed to find a source of calories. You've managed to find a bit of water. And the water has kept you alive. But you're starting to feel. You're starting to run on empty. You're starting to eat into your fat reserves. You're starting to feel extremely depleted. Your energy is extremely low. You're starving to death. All right. So let's imagine. Here you are, dragging yourself along. The sun is just whacking you with one intense ray after the next. You're super hungry. You're starting to lose your muscle mass. Your fat stores getting depleted. Let's imagine as you're dragging yourself along this little dirt trail, the Bandido is standing there with his 2 bunches of bananas, a grand total of 20 bananas. Let's imagine, here you are, dragging yourself completely depleted on energy. And you're not far off dying of starvation. You're dragging yourself along. And then you look up and you think, am I hallucinating? Because there's the dude 6 months ago that I bumped into in town who was holding the 2 bunches of bananas for 100 bucks. Now I want you to imagine that in the safari car accident 30 days ago, you had your wallet in your pocket. And I want you to imagine, for the sake of the example, that you have $200 in your wallet in cash. Let's just imagine you have $200 in your wallet. Now, as you drag yourself along the dirt trail and you see me, you see the Bandido with his big red bandana, dressed exactly the same way that he was 6 months ago. He looks the same. He's carrying the same bunches of bananas. Now, as you drag your way up to where I'm standing, I want you to imagine I make you the same offer. Good afternoon, sir. I have 20 bananas. Would you like to buy them for $100? Do you think you're gonna value the bananas a little bit more now? What is your perspective towards the bananas now? Are you turning your nose up at them? Are you thinking, fuck the bananas? I don't want bananas. I can get ice cream, and I can get chocolate, and I can get Chinese takeaways, and I can get Indian food. Is that what you're thinking when you're stuck out in this fucking wild nature reserve and you haven't eaten in 30 days? Is that what your thought process is towards the bananas? Fuck no. I'll tell you what you'll do. You'll get your wallet out and you'll throw the $100 my direction and you will beg for me to give you those bananas. In other words, all of a sudden, you really value those bananas. 6 months ago, you didn't value them at all. You looked at me on the side of the street and said, $100 for 20 bananas? Fuck you. But you see, what's the difference, folks? What has changed? That's right. Your circumstances have changed. And because your circumstances have changed, your perception of what is valuable in your new set of circumstances has also changed. And something that previously you did not value, all of a sudden, you really do. And so now, you go to your wallet and you happily part with $100 so that you can get your hands on my 20 bananas. So folks, there's example number one. Are bananas valuable? That's the question. Are bananas valuable? Well, the answer is, are bananas valuable? Are 20 bananas at $100 valuable to you? If I were to give you that question right now, are 20 ripe bananas at $100 valuable to you right now? You will only know the answer to that question. Can we objectively say that 20 ripe bananas at $100 are valuable? Are they worth the $100, in other words? Well, it depends, is the answer. It depends who I am asking. If I am asking someone who has just come out of the chippy, having eaten a big battered fish and a big portion of greasy chips, then the probabilities would say that that person probably won't value my 20 bananas at $100. But if I find someone who is starving to death on the African savannah in some fucking nature reserve after their safari car crashed and they haven't eaten in 30 days, will they find the bananas valuable at $100 if they have $100 on them? Of course! In other words, folks, value depends on your circumstances. How you determine if something is valuable or not to you will depend on your circumstances. Let me give you another example. Let's imagine you're getting ready for work. You're getting ready for work and you've decided, okay, I'm going to walk to work this morning because, my car has broken down and my car isn't going to be ready for, I don't know, a week. So let's say you've done some serious damage to your car and your car is currently out of commission and you now have to walk to work. Well, folks, what do you need? If you're out walking around, what do you need in order to walk safely? You need shoes. We would agree. So if you're going to go out and walk, you need shoes because there can be stuff on the ground that could damage your feet. There could be glass on the ground. There could be sharp objects on the ground. There could be a whole bunch of fuck knows what else on the ground that could cause problems. Thorns, who knows? So we put shoes on. Why? We wear shoes so that we protect the tissue, the skin on our feet. The shoes act as a buffer, as a safety measure against some sort of a sharp object or something that could damage our feet. All right. So if your car has broken down and it's not going to be available for a week and you now need to walk to work, and let's imagine your walk takes, 20 minutes. So let's say you have to walk 20 minutes to work and 20 minutes back. Well, you're going to need a pair of shoes because I don't know about you folks, I don't see too many people in my local area walking around town in their feet. They need shoes. Okay, so let's imagine you wake up one morning and you hear the door rapping. You hear a rap on the door. And you go down and because you're a dipshit, you don't even check to see who's at the door. You just answer the door. And the Bandido no longer has any bananas. Instead, having offloaded his bananas to, the person who was stuck out in the nature reserve in Africa, the Bandido has now acquired some new items. He's acquired a new pair of shoes. And it just so happens that the shoes that I have acquired match the size of your feet. So here you are. You come down in the morning, you hear me knocking on the door, you open the door, and here I am standing before you saying, "Good morning, madam. Would you like a pair of shoes for, $120? Here you go. I've got a perfect pair of shoes for you. $120. Would you like them?" Now, you will probably look at me and say, "Well, no, I don't want your shoes because I have 10 pairs of shoes in the house. I don't need another pair of shoes. And I sure as fuck don't want to be paying $120 for the shoes." And then let's say I say to you, okay, maybe I was a bit overambitious with my price. I got carried away. How about I sell you the shoes for $60? And you sort of look and say, "No, I don't want your shoes. Leave my house. Get away from my front door. I don't want your shoes. I have lots of shoes." So you close the door in my face. And so you go, you get your shoes, you put them on, and you walk to work. Great, no problem. Now let's imagine you go to bed that night and bejesus, you wouldn't believe what happens. Someone breaks into your house, but you don't realize that they've broken into your house, and for some reason, this person who has broken into your house has a hard-on for stealing people's shoes. Nobody knows why. He's the shoe stealer. He seems to just enjoy breaking into people's houses and stealing all their shoes. So let's imagine you're up sleeping and the shoe stealer breaks into your house and steals all your shoes. Absolutely no shoes in your house at all. And for good measure, he steals all your socks as well, because he also has a hard-on for socks. So this dude breaks into your house, steals all your socks, steals all your shoes. You wake up in the morning and you can hear me knocking on the door again. And you're thinking, this fucking idiot is back again. You can see the red bandana through the window. You know, the colour is just so... You're able to very easily identify who it is, let's just say. It identifies me very easily. So you're thinking, this fucking retard is back again with shoes. So you go down and you initially ignore me. And then you turn the corner and you realise that where your 10 pairs of shoes were normally sitting, they aren't sitting there anymore. And you're looking and going, where are my shoes? I've lost all my shoes. Jesus Christ. And then you go to your sock drawer. You know your sock drawer? And you're like, where are all my socks? All my socks and shoes are gone. And you're looking at the time and you're thinking, fuck, I need to be leaving for work in 30 minutes and I've no shoes. And my car's broken down and it's 6:30 in the morning and all my friends aren't really awake at the moment. I've got no shoes. What should I do? Now let's imagine, for some weird reason, the shoe stealer has stolen everybody else's shoes in your row and in your local neighbourhood. He had a feast of shoe stealing last night, let's just say. He went around all the houses and he's stolen everybody's shoes. So let's imagine I come to your door and it breaks on CBS News or whatever the fuck people listen to over in America. And CBS News says, by Jesus, the shoe stealer had a productive night last night. He stole everybody's shoes in this little neighbourhood. And nobody has any shoes or socks. So let's imagine you see this on the news and you're thinking, shit, I've no car. I can't ask the neighbours because they have no shoes. They have no socks. What am I going to do? I need to walk to work. You hear the knock on the door. Again. And you sort of turn to the door. And you put your hands together and you do this. And you think to yourself, I wonder, is that bandana wearing dude who came to my house yesterday, I wonder, does he still have those shoes? He's knocking at my door again. You know, if everybody in the neighbourhood has had their shoes and socks stolen, then there may be an opportunity for me to get the only pair of shoes that this dude is selling. So you run to the door and you open the door. And here I am, standing before you. Good morning, madam. And I'm holding the same pair of shoes that I was holding yesterday morning. And I say to you, madam, would you like to buy my pair of shoes? $60, same price as yesterday. What is your perspective? If you are the madam in question, has your perspective changed? Perspective meaning how you value the proposition, how you value my offer. Has it changed between yesterday and today? There are no shoes in the neighbourhood. Everyone's out of shoes. They've all been stolen. Here I am with only one pair of shoes at your door. You're the only person who has the potential to get a pair of shoes. Because remember, none of the shops are open. Everything's closed because it's 6:30 in the morning. Has your perspective towards me and the offer that I'm giving to you with regards to the shoes changed in any way? Do you value more what it is that I am offering you? Answer is yes, you do. And you know, it's funny because not only am I giving you a pair of shoes, but I'm going to throw in a complimentary pair of socks. Because I've heard that the shoe stealer stole everybody's socks as well. So let's imagine I say to you, look, try the shoes on. Try them on and see if you like them. And you try the shoes on. And you put the socks on first. And then you put the shoes on. And you think to yourself, they're very comfortable shoes, actually. Very comfortable shoes. They're the perfect fit. $60. $60 for a pair of shoes that are really comfortable. And they're going to help me, I've lost all my shoes. I'm going to have to go out and buy more shoes now. This is something I'm going to have to do. I'm going to have to buy more shoes. I'm not aware of shoe insurance that exists in the world, so I'm probably going to have to buy more shoes. And here I have this dude in a red bandana with a nice comfortable pair of shoes before me. Do you think if you were in those circumstances, whereby all your shoes have been stolen, everybody else around you have had their shoes stolen? There's a shortage of shoes, in other words, and socks, is what I'm trying to say. And here I am at your door, offering you a pair of shoes at $60, very reasonable. You've tried the shoes on. They're very comfortable, relatively stylish. You're going to have to buy shoes anyway because all your other pairs have been stolen. So this is something you're going to have to do. We all agree. People aren't going to walk to work in their bare feet for obvious reasons. You need shoes. In those circumstances, folks, has your perspective changed? Do you value the shoes more now that your shoes have been stolen compared to when you previously had 10 pairs of shoes in your house? The answer is yes, you do. Of course you value the shoes more because there is now a shortage of shoes. And you need shoes to walk to work. What other option do you have? So what do? You take out your $60 or you take out your credit card and you say, here you go, Mr. Bandido, I'll have the shoes. Thank you for calling around again, and I apologise for being rude to you yesterday. What has changed between yesterday and today? What has changed is your circumstances have changed. Yesterday, you had 10 pairs of shoes. Today, all your shoes have been stolen. There's a shoe shortage in the neighbourhood because the shoe stealer has stolen everybody's shoes. And you need to leave for work in 30 minutes. And because your car has broken down, you need a pair of shoes to be able to walk to work. And here's someone, the Bandido, has just arrived at your door, selling you a very nice pair of shoes for a very reasonable price. Has your perspective changed? Do you value those shoes that I'm offering you more now than you did yesterday? The answer is yes. What has changed? Your circumstances have changed. Those pair of shoes, are they objectively valuable? Is it just an objective fact that the shoes that I was trying to sell door to door, is it an objective fact that they are valuable? Of course not. If you already have 10 pairs of shoes in your house, you're going to value less those shoes because you don't need them. They aren't a priority. But circumstances have changed. And so, what you deem as valuable has changed in tandem with the changing circumstances.